You know, you put the fly with it? The camera's not that cool.
My name is Jism from the infamous hardcore band Jism, and we are standing in A7, post A7, 25/30 years later.
I'm Jimmy Gestapo, Jimmy G. Drescher of the band Murphy's Law. We're in Niagara, which once was the club called A7.
I'm Lorenzen from Brooklyn, New York, and I played at A7 many years ago with a band called Disturbed Rest. It was a band that a couple guys and I from school threw together, literally, put together about 10 songs. We played in this very room, somewhere's over here.
I'm Dave Scott. I was a drummer for AOD, and I came across this place, I think probably second week it was opened. Got a flyer at an Irving Plaza show, found out about it, and came down and checked out some early shows. I'd say within a couple weeks my band was playing here, and probably played here a dozen times.
Jesse Malin, I was in a band called Heart Attack. I sing by myself and with my band now. When I was a little kid, I guess I got into punk from the Ramones and the Clash, and by the time I started to hang out, I guess I was about 12 or 13 years old, and I heard about CBGB's, and I went there with my band from Queens to do an audition, and they told us that punk was dead, that it was all new romantic, rockabilly, all these different things, and it was over, and that wasn't really happening for us, so we kind of didn't really know what to do, and then we started walking around and ended up seeing these flyers for places down here on Avenue A, and ended up finding our way to this place by Tompkins Square Park, and realized that there was stuff going on with bands like False Prophets and Kraut and the Bad Brains and the Stimulators. Somehow I just ended up in this building playing with Heart Attack and playing other clubs. It was a small scene, about 50, 60 people. And from that it built and hardcore matinees and CBGBs, and suddenly it wasn't about the 70s and the music that we had missed out on. We were creating something that was connected to us, to kids from maybe the outer boroughs, Jersey, Long Island, Queens, that were coming here to express themselves, that didn't fit in our towns, in our little worlds. We wanted to create something, and it felt like it was really fresh and new, and all the styles of dancing, everything was sped up and taken to another level. And a lot of that would happen in this room till 6 in the morning. And years later, I found myself working at a hair band place here when I was 19 called King Tut's Wawa Hut. And in time after I got my record deal with D-Generation, I ended up opening this place with my partner, Johnny T, who I have this spot with since. And he kept saying, we got to do something for the history in this room. We got to do like a historical plaque. And I was like, really? And then he was like, yes, really. So we decided to finally do it. With all this stuff going, the nostalgia of punk rock in museums and CBGB's movies and festivals, it was like, you know what, I want to represent where I come from and do it in here. So when the CBGB's festival came this year, they asked me to play all these clubs. I was like, no, I want to play here. I want to go back to where I started. And it's the time to do the plaque. So we got Jimmy here tonight, and my friends that are still alive and healthy and still love rock and roll and punk rock and, of course, hardcore. So we couldn't fit all the bands I'd like to on that plaque. Now I saw it, I realized there's more room. I wish I put more bands, but we wanted to expose that what happened here. So there's New York bands as a birthplace in New York hardcore, but then there's American hardcore bands like SSD Control, who are in the photo, like Black Flag, who Henry sang for his first time with here, Bad Brains, you know, stuff like that, DOA, just to show that it all happened in here, you know, and the Beastie Boys and bands that went on to do really well. But there's younger bands that never happened that are great on that. And it's cool to see a lot of great faces and be here tonight. This is, it's special, it means a lot to me. And I don't know, I'm getting nostalgic as I get older, I guess, something.
There was a DJ booth here. There's a pretty cool photo of me sitting here reading a fanzine that we'll maybe put when you make the movie. The bands played over here. There were ugly purple curtains. Drummer would set up here. It was a house kit. We actually had the kick drum skin was a pizza box, you would remember. That was my idea. And then the singer would sing here.
We're all equal. Punk, skid, black, white. Every one of us. Hair, no hair. Start doing it. Talk about everything. Talk about everything. You're the one that's supposed to say. Why don't you get the socialist?
this was the place. The birthplace of New York hardcore. This room, I don't know, for some reason, it seemed a lot bigger when I was younger. This is ground zero. That word's used too much too, but this is ground zero for New York hardcore.
I've seen a lot of great shows here, though. A lot of out-of-town bands, like the FUs, one of my favorite shows here. Saw the Freeze here. You know, the beginning of it, pretty much the entire New York hardcore scene, Urban Waste, Reagan Youth. I was part of that original Max's scene, and towards the end, when the whole hardcore scene migrated over here, that's kind of how I came across this place.
If it wasn't CB's, it was here. A lot of bands, if they wanted to play, this was the place that, like, it was like the stop on the Northeast Corridor, coming up from DC up to New Jersey to New York up to Boston. This was the place to play. This is, if you wanted to be seen by the kids who you wanted to be seen by, this was the place to do it.
We did have some bands come in that were popular. Black Flag was one, Bad Brains, of course, in DC. But most of the other bands here were either from New York and or Queens, believe it or not. We didn't have many bands from Manhattan. We had many bands from Queens.
It was a big deal to play 7. I remember being in Queens rehearsing, but you could play here at any time. They had the equipment nailed to the stage, so you didn't have to book it in advance. You could come down here. They opened the doors at midnight, and it went till 6. So you'd come down and be like, hey, Dave Gibson, who ran the place, I want to play tonight. And suddenly they just put in a magic marker on a piece of paper and stick it out in front of the door. And you didn't get the Village Voice or the internet or, you know, some site. It was like it happened that night. You just came here and you didn't know who was going to show up and play. One night Iggy Pop came here just to check out the Bad Brains. I mean, it was just a thing. It meant a lot that you had a place where you could go and do anything. You didn't have to be advanced booking. You didn't have to like call for an audition. You could just show up and go, I got a band, and you played, and Dave paid you, and you felt special because you got paid, and you were playing in a place that was completely illegal. Everything that was going on this dance floor was brand new, and people didn't move like that, people didn't think like that, and you felt like you were a part of something that was like, you know, when rock and roll was being born in the 50s or something. It was like something new, and of course that went on. Mosh became a household word. Mohawks, people go to Hot Topic, moms are, you know, it was here, it was 70 kids, and it was dangerous, and it was like your moment to do something, and people acknowledged you. You found that moment.
I would say the best part about this place was that it was punk owned. I mean, every other place you had to deal with, you know, somebody like a Hilly Crystal that wants you to play an audition night, or, you know, it was hard to get into Max's back in the day, and this was really a place that you could not only play, but get a following. I mean, within a few weeks of playing here, we were drawing people, which we weren't doing in New York. You know, and this was kind of like a starting point for us. You know, from here we got like an Irving Plaza show, and then our band kind of took off. So A7 was a lot of good memories, and I remember leaving this place and the sun's coming up and you're completely worn out and you got to get to work or school the next day and you're just dying. But I love this place.
I remember SSD Control, that band that's playing there. That might have been that very, I don't know if it was that very show. No, that show, a lot of guys came in from Boston and they all had ski masks on. And they came in and it was the biggest pylon I've ever seen. In this room packed with kids, no one was standing. Everyone was on top of each other on the floor. They came with ski masks on and they got buried. But it was all in good fun. It wasn't like, they were representing Boston, we were representing New York, and it was in the pit. It was kind of like a hockey game without a puck. There was no goalie, but we were representing our bands. One of their bands would play, one of our bands would play, and we'd go there and the same would happen. A little bit of fisticuffs, but nothing major.
This neighborhood sucked. Alphabet City was not a place for a 16-year-old from suburban New Jersey. Didn't walk around here much on my own. I was always with my friends, and I've seen some heavy shit go down right outside the place. I've seen, you know, somebody, you know, come up to the A7 saying they got raped, and then everybody went and beat the crap out of the rapist in the park. I've seen a motorcycle guy drive down the street, somebody come out of the shadows and knock him off his bike, head with a bat to his head, and take off on his bike. This neighborhood was, you know, to think about now that it's Starbucks and strollers, It's really weird to me because this was not a happy place. It was a big-time drug dealing area, and the people that were here really were kind of scary to a little kid.
The neighborhood. It wasn't a neighborhood, it was a war zone. Seriously, with no disrespect, but it was like I sensed that something was wrong. I said to myself, all right, let me be cool around here because otherwise I'm going to get my head bashed in. I mean, it wasn't really a war zone, but it was a war zone compared to what the neighborhood is today. It was relatively safe. I mean, you know, you park your car, you walk down the street. Then, of course, you go to Avenue B and Avenue C and Avenue D. Those were a little bit more dangerous. You know, I mean, there were people that wouldn't walk down the streets in the daylight. But I mean, you know, everybody sort of builds it up as the neighbor, you know, well, back then, blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, it wasn't as bad as people say it is. It's just that compared to today, it was kind of a, you know, like World War II, I guess. Maybe World War I.
We have people alive still that I grew up with, and the music that happened here that changed our lives and still keeps changing kids' lives. So we're going to do this hardcore historical plaque that was raised in the place that's now Niagara. And Jimmy, come on, want to say anything?
Well, I used to DJ right there when I was 15, and I was dancing right there, as you can see in the picture. A lot of you guys played here. A lot of you guys danced here. But Jesse, thank you for doing this. Here's the plaque. Once again, I'm Jimmy Gestapo from the band Murphy's Law. Thank you for visiting Niagara, aka A7. Jesse Malin, your host. Steve Pass, the mess. And mi compadre, Seaton Hancock Raven. He's the next one needs to be interviewed. Thank you, Drew.